Hello and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. My name's the Nerd Man, and today I'm going to be discussing something that's come across the news recently. And it's because I'm a big fan of action. A big fan of one of these guys, and then the other guy, I actually really have enjoyed his work in acting. And I saw that allegations had come across, had been, uh, some allegations had recently come out about them by women who have accused them of, we'll discuss what they've actually accused them of later. And I wanted to discuss it because I think this case is really, really interesting. I've talked a lot on this channel about the situation with Ray Fisher and how I believe in due process and innocent until proven guilty. And I still believe in all those things. And in this case, I believe in all those things. And it's also one of those things where it's interesting now because with Marlyn Manson, who is one of the guys, I was actually a big fan of him when I was a kid. I mean, I was a bit of an emo kid in some ways, and Marlyn Manson really spoke to me. I was into hip hop, I was into rock, I was into metal. I was one of those kids, and so Marlyn Manson. To be fair, he wasn't like I liked his image basically a lot. I was going through this kind of rebellious phase where, I thought being an atheist was some radical, thing, especially in my family. Half my family are Muslim and then half my family are Christian. Me deciding to be an atheist, right, was like this big radical kind of rebellious thing, and I was so much better and more intellectual than all of my family because of that. And so someone like Marlyn Manson and his kind of vibe and his image actually spoke to me a lot in terms of that kind of rebelliousness. It's kind of like, again, I'm a big fan of Woody Allen. And with that, again, the allegations against him are something that I often, have trouble with. One, the moral side to it, and then the legal side, right? Because I think there are things that I am morally against, right? That are so bad that to me I wouldn't be able to revisit the music or the films of that particular person, but they're not illegal, right? So the person shouldn't necessarily be cancelled. They're just wildly immoral. And then there are things that are immoral that the person should be cancelled for, but they're still not illegal. And then there are obviously illegal things. So this one really crosses the boundaries of all of them. So I really wanted to explore this one as a fan of Marlyn Manson and as somebody who's enjoyed the work of Arnie Hammer. And to show that we don't have to be fanboys to these people. We need to be objective towards every allegation. And I'd like to say, because I've read these women's accounts already, that in spite of the criticisms I'm going to make towards certain aspects of cancel culture and how these allegations have come about, that I really think that these women are, I don't want to use brave. I hate when they say this is brave to come out. I support, in a sense, that if they've really been through some terrible shit with this guy, I really support that they've given other women the strength who've been through similar stuff to come forward against the people who perpetrated that against them. The manner in which they do it, maybe I find problematic at times, and I'm going to cover that. But in general, with Evan Rachel Wood and the rest of these women, I think that there's, with this case, it's not like some other cases. There's a lot of controversy surrounding Johnny Depp at the moment with Amber Heard. And one of the things that doesn't support her case is that other women haven't come forward to say that Johnny Depp has done anything to them. So, in general, it doesn't look good for her case. So let me go into now because I think the best way forward, the best way I can discuss the issues I'm having with this, because there is a lot of issues around cancel culture, and there's a lot of issues around what consent means in this case. And so the best way I can discuss this for me is to read through the allegations against Marlyn Manson and against Arnie Hammer, and then go from there to really discuss what the kind of issues that this raises are. Okay, so I'm going to start off with, I believe this is Evan Rachel Wood's. I hope you guys can see that. So this was Evan Rachel Wood's first Instagram about Marlyn Manson. So she says, the name of my abuser is Brian Warner, also known to the world as Marlyn Manson. He started grooming me when I was a teenager and horrifically abused me for years. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. This is where I particularly wanted to stop. Now, one of the things I really, really don't like, and I'm sure this isn't Evan Rachel Woods, I'm sure this is her lawyer or legal team who have helped her put this together, right? Now, a lot of people believe that all sex with underage people is pedophilia, right? And that, anyone who sleeps with anyone who's under the age of, 18 or 16, depending on what country you're in, then they are pedophilia, right? Now, actually, there's, that's why making a claim like this is very, very damning towards somebody. You say, he started grooming me when I was a teenager. Well, what does that mean, a teenager? Teenager crosses the boundary, by saying teenager, it crosses the boundary between legal and illegal, right? And first of all, sleeping with somebody who is prepubescent is pedophilia, whereas sleeping with somebody who is a pubescent teen is actually a phobophilia, which is a very, very different thing. And even the paraphilia that is connected with the phobophilia is very, very different from somebody who just sleeps with a, teenager over, say, the age of 14, right? So someone sleeping with a teenager over the 14 might be some misguided idiot who believes that this teenager is particularly immature, and they fall in love with this one teenager, as opposed to somebody who serially goes after teenagers who are of 13 to 15 years old. There's a big, big distinction between those two camps of types of people, right? So there's the school teacher who falls in love with a young boy who's the best in her class, and she thinks he's so super mature, and he pursues her even, and one day she just falls for him, right? That is different to somebody who serially targets people between the ages of 13 and 15 years old, which is a phobophilia. And then you have pedophilia, which is somebody who's targeting prepubescent kids, right? But here we've got something where the suggestion here, right? This is one thing I don't like about these, these social media accusations of people, which is very, very troubling. She says, I was a teenager. Okay. Were you 18? Were you above a legal age? Don't be vague about that, because that's very, very important. When you say grooming, the presumption must mean that you were underage, because you groom people who are underage. You don't groom people who are supposed to be adults. Now, me personally, I think the law has it wrong. I think 18-year-olds, people who are 30 should not be sleeping with 18-year-olds, in my opinion, right? There should be maybe brackets, right? So if you're between the ages of 25 and 18, you can sleep with an 18-year-old, right? Or 24 or something and 18, you can sleep with an 18-year-old, right? But people who are like 30, 40-year-olds have no business sleeping with 18-year-olds, in my opinion. So I think the law has it wrong there, because I think 18-year-olds are incredibly impressionable as girls and as boys, and can be easily taken advantage of by somebody who's more worldly, like a 40-year-old or a 30-year-old or a 50-year-old, right? So to me, the law has it wrong there. But nonetheless, according to the law, you should be able to make your own money at the age of 18, right? So using the words grooming and teenager is very provocative, because from all the evidence that can be gleaned about the situation between Marlyn Manson and Evan Rachel Woods, and I hope she will care to clarify, she was in fact 18 years old when she met him. So this is what she means by I was a teenager and he was grooming me. And grooming does not necessarily, even though I believe in reality it is true that you can groom an 18-year-old, in law, grooming 18-year-olds doesn't quite work in the same way as grooming younger teenagers. You have less of a case there. So I think this is purposefully used to suggest things. And if Evan Rachel Woods wants to clarify what she means, then it would be better. But it's just to make Marlyn Manson look worse. And you don't need to make him look worse when you see some of the accusations that women have against him. Okay, so I was brainwashed and manipulated into submission. Right. Now, here's the thing about brainwashing, all right, that I want to ask an open question, especially to women watching this video. If you are brainwashed into committing acts against yourself, right, that you yourself are uncomfortable with, but that you at the time consent to because you are being brainwashed, or you have been brainwashed, what legal weight does that carry, right? Like, it's not like he, according to this, ironically, like Charles Manson, who brainwashed people, is accused of those brainwashed people going out and murdering somebody, right? If he brainwashed you to rape to assault sexually or do anything like that to other people, then there's something really damning there. But if he brainwashed you to consensually hurt yourself, then as bad as that is that any of our business or the media's business or, Marlyn Manson's record company's business? Because the point is, you consent. You say, yes, I'm okay with this. You go along with it. You marry him. You continue to go out and date him. Now, people go out with their abusers for years, right? But these abusers usually are accused of beating the crap out of these women, so doing something illegal. So yes, people go out with their abusers for a long time, and that is true. But if the abuse is merely that you were consenting to do things that harmed yourself, like some, I don't know, BDSM act or something like that, but you agree to it and that act is illegal, then it's terribly morally wrong for them to do that. I think a very experienced, worldly, 30, 40-year-old man who targets teenagers with his music, dating an 18-year-old and making them do sexually explicit, terrible things, is hugely problematic. It's hugely problematic. There's no doubt about it. I think that is wrong in terms of how you should use your stage, especially somebody like Marlyn Manson, who really kind of appealed to teenagers because he was like, he's one of us. He understands us, right? He understands what we're going through. For you to not use that, like, that you have that power responsibly, I think is a terrible, I think that's a very, very bad, sign on your character, essentially, on Marlyn Manson's character. I think, essentially, it speaks badly to Marlyn Manson's character that he would do that he would use his power there. But again, we're talking about record labels and what power they have over, because Marlyn Manson's career is now ruined, right? Does he deserve it morally? Yes, probably. Does he deserve it legally? And that's what my question is. Does Marlyn Manson deserve to be cancelled from a legal perspective? Because Harvey Weinstein deserved to be cancelled from a legal perspective. Even Bill Cosby deserved to be cancelled from a legal perspective. What they were accusing him of, if true, if that is in fact what Bill Cosby did, that is an illegal matter by the law, and if found guilty, then he has to face the consequences because evidence was provided that the courts believed. This, on the other hand, is a moral question, which I think should be more up to fans to make the decision of whether they want to continue to watch or listen to his music, considering that he did this to 18-year-olds, right? Or 18, 19, 20-year-olds, right? This is not necessarily the label's going to drop him. And the reason I say this is because if you allow this, right, this to get through, then the line is going to go down and down and down and down till the point where it's just any kind of accusation can lead you to have your whole career taken apart. There has to be a point where we take a stance. Now, am I saying that the Marlyn Manson one is the point where we make a stand and say, no, we're going to go on and see what these women accuse him of, and whether, if taken in a legal route, should he be cancelled if he's found guilty of these things, right? So up until now, I'm just saying, I was brainwashed and manipulated into submission. He groomed me when I was a teenager. What does that mean? Does that mean 18, 19, 20? Are you being a little bit slippery with language there? Or are you actually saying that he really groomed you and he's, an ephebophile who was grooming you from the age of 15 and doing despicable things to you then? essentially, statutory rape, right? And then I was brainwashed and manipulated into submission. There you go. I'm done living in fear of retaliation, slander, or blackmail. I'm here to expose this dangerous man and call out the many industries that enabled him before he ruins any more lives. I stand with the many victims who will no longer be silent. Okay, well, I think that's a great statement at the end. Evan Rachel Wood. I'm a big fan of Evan Rachel Wood as well. I think she's superb in this, what is it called? Westworld. I think she's an incredible actress. So this is what she's been willing to say so far. So I'm here to expose the dangerous man and call out the industries that have enabled him before he ruins more lives. I think they're now pursuing a court case, a legal case against Marlyn Manson. Okay, so I'm not up to date on the details of that, but I want to go into this one as well. So, do we have the full one? Here we go. So we can go side to side. So this is a new one, and who is this by? This is by Smashley Walters. No. Oh, somebody who's followed. Who is the source of this? I believe this might be by a woman called Gabrielle. Okay. So Brian Warner, aka Marlyn Manson, reached out to me on social media in 2010, asking if we could collaborate on a photo shoot together. As a photographer and an admirer of his work, I was excited for the opportunity. We quickly became friends, and after about 6 months, he asked me to come work for him full-time as his personal assistant. In the beginning, he'd put me on a pedestal and would tell me I was saving his life. He'd okay, so let's just start here. 6 months, he asked me to come work for him full-time as his personal assistant, right? Then it seems to skip something. Something seems missing here. In the beginning, because I don't know if they're accusing him of sexual impropriety here, but there seems to be some kind of gap missing. But in the beginning, he put me on a pedestal and would tell me I was saving his life. He'd frequently say things like, "It's us against the world." And one of the things I want to mention here, actually, because I think a lot of these women go through lawyers, and I've gone through lawyers in a case, for instance, where somebody punched me and broke my tooth or something like this. And I was basically going to sue them, the company, because it was essentially a club, and I was trying to get my jacket from the storage room, and I did the clever thing, and I ended up coming back the next day with police to show that my jacket was in there and that they punched me for no reason, and I got my witnesses and whatever. But the things that the lawyers were trying to get me to say, like I hadn't drank that night, like I wasn't drunk at all. And I'm like, no, I was drunk. I had a drink, but I wasn't aggressive. It's me sitting there saying I hadn't drunk anything. I was in a club. Of course I drank something. I didn't go there to, just drink water. So it's always like they're trying to get the most damning story. So they don't want you to tell the truth and be honest about how the story came about. And I think that's really problematic, because it's that adversarial system where they don't want any reason for you to, it's not a crime. Me drinking in a club is not a crime, but they didn't want anything. So they were trying to get me to say, oh no, I only had one drink, or I didn't even drink. Just say you didn't drink, right? And I was like, no, I'm not going to get up there and be made a fool of by some prosecutioner saying, oh, you didn't drink, then blah, blah, blah. A defense lawyer, pardon me, saying that. So in the end, I really got pissed off with the lawyer, and I was just like, I'm out of here. I don't need this in my life. So anyway, so this is what I'm saying about this statement. Like, a lot of the statements try and be damning and make themselves look as innocent as possible. And that makes it seem unrealistic, because we know this man is famous. We know every weird chick on the planet wanted to bang him. And we know you probably wanted to bang him. So don't pretend. That doesn't give him the right to hurt you later. Just because you wanted to sleep with him, that does not give him the right to hurt you later. If he hurt you later, he hurt you later. And that is illegal. And he ought to be taken to court for it. Stop trying to make yourself look super innocent about the whole thing. So in the beginning, he'd put me on a pedestal and would tell me I was saving his life. He'd frequently say things like, "It's us against the world." We became extremely close, like family. We even got matching tattoos. So by then you were fucking him. Why don't you just say, I was sleeping with him by this time, right? I was actively in a relationship. Why are you distancing, using language like fat? No, by then we were like seeing each other, and I was into it. Matching tattoos. He presented his house as a safe space where you could express yourself freely and without judgment. I didn't realize he was gathering information that he'd later use against me. I soon became a victim of his psychological abuse. Okay, so you really need to elaborate on what this psychological abuse is. He was very skillful at gaslighting his inner circle. I'd witnessed him inflict this. I don't like, because a lot of maybe everyone else knows what like gaslighting and love bombing and all of this language means, this kind of modern millennial language. But I really think you ought to be very, very clear with what you're saying. What do you mean he was very skilled at gaslighting? What is gaslighting? Like, I don't even know what that even means, his inner circle. So is he just being an asshole and making his friends be mean to you when he didn't like you? Is that what you mean by gaslighting, I suppose? That's annoying and it's hurtful, but you can just leave, like that's your own, you need to be around him. You need to be around fame. You need to be around money. You need to be around celebrity. I don't see why we're even talking about this. He was very skilled. Is that why you came on the internet, to tell people that, is this why you want to expose the man for being a dangerous psychological criminal, for making his friends be mean to you? And this is my problem with these accusations. One, just either you're going to tell the full story where you were into it in the beginning, right? And then one day he raped you or something like that. He has no right to do that. Even if you are in the middle of sleeping with him and you start saying no and he continues, he has no right to do that. You do not have to make up a bunch of stuff to make it look like every single interaction with Marlyn Manson was some grand scheme and manipulation, which maybe it was, But in the end, the real meat of the story, or the real, thing that is important here, is what he did that was illegal to you. Okay? Gaslighting his inner circle. Okay? So I witnessed him in this psychological abuse on everyone he employed, everyone he dated. He would dictate the parameters of our reality. I don't know what that means. You'll really have to express what you're talking about here. Horrifying, deranged behavior and insane scenarios became normalized. Again, I don't know what that means. And given that it's Marlyn Manson, and you see it in his videos, you see it in his music, and I'm not saying therefore you deserve any bad thing happening to you. That's horrible to say. But like when you say that, I just imagine, he does like weird rock music shit, like where everyone's being fucking insane and drinking each other's blood or some bullshit. I don't know. I really don't know. But if you're consenting to it, it makes it hard to kind of single him out as doing something extremely illegal. It may be immoral, but not illegal. He was extremely interested in mind control, torture tactics, i.e., different sound frequencies that would shift your mood or make you nauseous, and spy devices to gather information for blackmailing and manipulation. So he had cameras around his house, is basically what you're saying, right? Because why wouldn't you if you're a celebrity? I don't know what that means. I mean, he had spy. If I was rich and a celebrity, again, it's like, stick to what's illegal. He can justify any of these things, right? Easily. And maybe people won't listen to him in this day and age because we're in this judgment, cancel culture kind of era. But I witnessed him inflict psychological abuse on everyone he employed, everyone he dated. I was being an asshole. I'm sorry, but I didn't do anything illegal. That would be my justification to that. I'm sorry. I could, I was young, I was famous, I was full of myself, and sometimes I could be a little thoughtless and a bit of an asshole. But most of the times I was a nice, friendly guy. It's just that sometimes I could be an asshole. And I did that to a lot of people, and I'm very, very sorry. Next bit. He would dictate the parameters of our reality. I would just say, I don't even know what that means. I spoke to them and, I'm an artist. So in my world, I created, spaces that matched my own aesthetic or my own fantasies. But I was not trying to make them into drones or maybe I was trying to convince them of certain ways that I think, but only in an open and honest kind of way. Okay, so horrifying deranged behavior and insane scenarios became normalized. All right, so I'm a rock star. I was full of myself. I was arrogant, back then. This was the first. I grew up a poor kid. Suddenly, I had all this money to make all my fantasies become true. And sometimes, I may have stepped over the line a little, but I never did anything illegal, and it was always of the consent of everyone, as far as I understood, the consent of everyone involved. That would be my answer. He was extremely interested in mind control, torture tactics, and spy devices to gather information for blackmailing and manipulation. Now, I would just say about this, he was extremely interested in mind control and torture tactics. Like, maybe she saw me reading about, MK Ultra or something like that, and I would talk about MK Ultra to her. But I have a healthy interest in intellectual matters or in psychology and all of this kind of stuff. So that was my interest in it. It was a completely innocent interest. And spy devices, so I recorded things in my house. Like, I had cameras around my house because in case anyone stole anything from me or, people stole from me before. So I had, things. So I don't know, maybe if there was recordings if he kept recordings of people, that's probably problematic. But in terms of if he had cameras around the house, I'm not sure that that's the worst crime in the world, given that he's very, very wealthy. It felt like I was his property because he would offer me up for sexual encounters to please potential collaborators or friends and brag that he could do so. Now, this, I think, is highly, highly immoral. I don't know how old this girl is. I'm not sure how old she is. But this is highly immoral. And, it's just not a nice thing to be using women like they're some kind of property to just be passed around to other men. I think that's horrifying. That being said, I don't know. Like, I don't want to say anything about this because this is a touchy subject. I would say, did you agree to it? You know, but you shouldn't be doing that anyway. That's horrible. You just shouldn't be doing that. Did you agree to it? Because these famous guys, suddenly they can get any woman they want. Sorry, Marilyn Manson, I think, is a very handsome guy. I think he's, very talented in his musical way. But I don't know that this guy would be getting 10 out of 10 models, if he wasn't Marilyn Manson, if he was just some guy, some dude, right? So that kind of power is going to go to your head. If I'm so glad, like, if I was famous when I was 20, I would have been in jail. I don't know that I would have handled it very well. If every woman, that suddenly you think you're getting 10 out of 10 models, right? As a guy with this huge sexual energy surging within you, right? You would start to think that every woman wants you and you can get every woman. And that could slide into some very, very murky, horrible, stuff, right? Like, oh, I've got a girlfriend, I have so much control of her. I can even say sleep with. I'm not saying that's what I would have done if I was famous. Probably, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is that I could have done other things. I can imagine, especially along the lines of like narcotics and stuff like that, where I would have been either dead or in jail. My ego would have been so massive. I wouldn't have ever become a narcissist. I don't think that, but I would have gone through huge bouts of depression and probably paranoia. Who is my friend, and all of this kind of stuff. And yeah, it would have. I think 30 is a very good age. 30 something, or when you're a little bit older, out of your 20s, is a much better time to become rich or famous. Because if you become famous or rich when you're 20, you're going to make some bad mistakes. There's no doubt about it. You don't have enough knowledge. And unless you've got fantastic parents, that's the only way. Like, if you have really, really great parents who can guide you through it, and really, really great friends, or you meet somebody who's famous who kind of guides you a little bit, you can get into some super dangerous situations, especially, I think, as a guy. And I'm not trying to excuse men's behavior because of that, but I'm just saying that's the truth of it. If you're a guy like me, I'm not saying, I've done terribly with women or something like that, but I certainly don't think I'm not like consistently getting 10 out of 10 models like wanting to date me and calling me up saying they love me and they need me and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't happen to me. So if my reality suddenly switched, where suddenly that did become my reality, especially when I was 20 years old, and I was worse with women when I was 20, right? Like, before I was, like, by the time I got to 24, 25, I started to learn a little bit more about women and become more mature in that sense. But when I was, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I was hardly even dating that many women. So if suddenly that happened, that would be a huge thing. It would be a huge thing. And I don't know that I would have handled it that well. That's all I'm saying. I don't know that I could have handled it that well without, especially I don't have the great parents that would have been able to guide me through it. Some of my friends were hugely self-destructive as well. So I would have had my entourage of friends with me because I'm very generous as a person. I was generous even back then. So I certainly would have been looking after my friends who were, some of them, very self-destructive. And it would have, I know I wouldn't have been narcissistic and got a God complex, but so what I'm saying is these things like this, what she's talking about, it felt like I was property because he would offer me up for sexual encounters to please potential collaborators or friends and brag that he could do so, is because he's suddenly a guy. If he was like Brad Pitt, I can see how people like Brad Pitt and George Clooney can handle fame, because women were checking for them since they were kids, since they were like teenagers. Brad Pitt has probably always got hot girls, right? Like, so him getting a little bit more because he's famous doesn't make that difference. But when you get a guy like Marilyn Manson, who probably didn't get chicks until he was famous, let's be real about it. That guy did not get chicks until he was like famous or in a rock band or whatever, right? And he's getting like beautiful women all the time. That's going to go to your head. I think he should have, he was 30 something by the time this happened. So I think he should have at least have snapped out of that a little bit by then, but clearly didn't. These are the things that, you know, potentially could happen, and it's disgraceful. So I'd be threatened if he wasn't happy with me, or be made to do an impossible. I'd be threatened if he wasn't happy with me, or be made to do impossible tasks so he could continue to berate me. So this is classical abusive behavior right here, right? I don't know how much that falls into illegal behavior, because it depends on the nature of the threat, and then this is just classical abusive behavior, right? So it's almost word for word what an abusive person does with me. So it's the isolation, you know, getting people to do impossible things, so you can be constantly upset. You're stupid. You're an idiot. You know, I'm the best thing that's ever happened to you, blah, blah, blah. It's horrible behavior. So let's continue. He isolated me from my friends and family. Let me see if anyone's watching. I doubt anybody's watching right now. Yeah, nobody's watching. Okay, good. So I'll just keep it on my channel, as, you know, if anybody wants to watch it in the future. He isolated me from my family and friends. Sometimes I wouldn't be allowed to leave for days. Sometimes I wouldn't be allowed to leave for days. Sometimes I wouldn't be allowed to sleep. That's really problematic right there. He'd frequently become violent, throwing items, including glass plates and heavy objects. Many nights I feared for my safety or the safety of others. I'd let management know when I was having an exceptionally bad experience with him, but they'd say things like, it is what it is, or he has done worse, and send me back in. Now that's fucking terrifying if people were doing that. So this is really, now that's the first bit of detail that has really, you know, like illuminated what the situation is. So she did reach out for help, is what she's saying. You know, she did reach out from to the management, and this is where, yeah, you know, this does start to impact. You know, this should start to impact what his career is. So, not allowing them to sleep. We need to have more clarity with that. Hopefully, an investigation would give more clarity to that accusation. He frequently become violent, throwing items, including glass plates and heavy objects. That level of threat is enough for one to believe that he could hit them, right? So once you've gone over that threshold with the rest of the behavior, then any threat that he makes towards her can therefore be interpreted as believable. So if he says, "I'm going to kill you," you know, then that threat is actually believable if he's thrown objects, you know, around the room, smashed rooms up. But then again, I don't think it's suggested here that he ever did strike them or hit them. It was only the threat and behavior that was such that you know, she could actually fear that he would do something bad, especially if he's like, you know, she says, I'm going to leave you, and then he gets angry, starts smashing up objects. She goes to management, and she says, oh, he's done worse, or, you know, it is what it is, right? And send me back in, right? I don't understand what she means by send me back in, because surely she'd have the freedom to just leave. Surely, I don't know that they were imprisoning her or forcing her to stay there, but we'll see. Anyway, sometimes I was too scared to tell management everything. Sometimes I was told it was my fault because I wasn't setting enough boundaries. That isn't necessarily wrong. I'm not saying it's your fault, but I'm saying that you probably, if he isn't physically hitting you, then you still have space to be able to set boundaries, and you could leave. You could just leave, and you let him gaslight you, and let him, you know, let his friends say whatever. Because if they threaten you, or if he stalks you, or if he, then you can literally really, really get him with a fucking lawsuit and that kind of stuff. So leaving would be your best option. A year or so, just, you know, FYI. So a year or so ago, a year or so later, our professional relationship ended. He continued. Why does she say our professional relationship? I don't understand that. She just admitted that they got into a sexual relationship, and it would, see, to me, that sounds like she's looking back at a memory and saying, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go out with Marlyn Manson. I wouldn't go out with an abuser. And she's disassociating herself from that. And she's trying to make it out like, oh, it was a professional relationship. No, it wasn't. It was a sexual relationship. He was passing you around to people to, to sleep with, to impress them. That's a sexual relationship. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a part 2 to this, because I think otherwise it's going to go on too long. But thank you. Do like, subscribe, and add to the discussion. I'd like to hear everyone's thoughts on this, and what they think in terms of what's been happening with Marlyn Manson. And I'm going to do a part 2 right away afterwards. Okay.